Hi friends, Colby Sharp here, excited to share with you the books that my students are reading. Before we get started, I want to share with you the books that I have been reading. And if you could take a moment at some point during the video down in the comments below to share either the books you're reading or the books your students are reading, I would love if we could all work together to build our to-read list. Okay, so I'm gonna share with you the book that I just finished, Elizabeth Acevedo's Clap When You Land. I don't read a lot of young adult novels. This book was amazing. Elizabeth's novels in verse just blow my mind. If you read Poet X, even if you didn't read Poet X, you have to read this book. The story of two girls, one living in the Dominican Republic, one living in New York City. They do not know each other, but they're sisters. And their father kind of travels back and forth. It's fascinating, it's amazing. What happens when the father's plane crashes, going from being with one daughter to the other, leads to all sorts of an amazing story. So check out Clap When You Land, amazing. And I am currently reading, this book just came out, A Home for Goddesses and Dogs by Leslie Connor. This is an amazing story of a girl named Lydia whose mother passes away. And she is now living with her aunt, her only living relative that she has any contact with. And let me tell you, there's some scenes in here. I'm not very far in. I'm on page 61, but the scene when she kind of has a flashback and talks about her last moments with her mom, I'll tell you, some of the best pages I've read so far this year. So A Home for Goddesses and Dogs. All right, now the reason you tuned in is to see the books that my students are reading. So let's get into that. You may have heard of this book, Smile by Raina Telgemeier. This book just turned 10 years old. It is as popular as ever. Almost always have at least one kid reading this book. You'll see a little more Raina later. One of the most important and best books written the last decade. So thankful that we have it in our libraries. Next up, The Absence of Sparrows. I don't know this book at all. One of my students is reading it. It looks good. Cover is amazing. And she is about 50 pages in. She seems to dig it. So excited to see where this book takes her. Next up is a Stranger Things. It's an official novel. Runaway Max. If you watch Stranger Things, you know who Max is. A lot of my students are obsessed with this show. So anytime they can get more out of this show through any means, they are going to take it. I think 3 or 4 kids have read it. Excited to have another one reading it. Next up, Andrew Clement's The Losers Club. I love this book. I'm sad that Andrew has passed away. His novels have meant so much to so many of us. The Losers Club, phenomenal middle grade novel. Indian No More. I read this book last year. It's one of my 5 favorite books. Book talked it, love seeing that we have some kids checking it out. Really, really important book. I learned a lot about the world, made me think a ton. Indian No More. Good Enough by Jen Petra Roy. A lot of kids read this book last year. A lot of kids are reading this book this year. Really just fascinating to see so many kids so interested in a book that looks at a girl who is really struggling with her eating and is in a clinic for an eating disorder, in a hospital for an eating disorder. Phenomenal book. Important that we have these books on our shelves. Okay, looks like we kind of have 3 books that go together. Land of Stories 1, 2, and 3. This series is making its way around, and the kids are loving it. And I love that these 3 girls all sit at the same table, and one started reading it, and then another started reading it, and then another started reading it, and the one who started is now on book 3, and then the second one is on book 2, and then we have another student getting to know it. On the back of this book has a post-it note that says great YouTube video. I think my students have caught on that when I collect their books once a month that I'm making a video. So thank you for the kind words, my 5th grade student. Great book, great series. All right, next up is First Team by Tim Green. I think I have another Tim Green reader. Yeah. Ooh. Also Unstoppable by Tim Green. These kids are loving these books. They're telling me all about them each day. Love it. I wish that these books would have been more books like this when I was a kid. It was pretty much Matt Christopher or nothing when it came to books about sports. Next up, Catherine's War. We read The War That Saved My Life, a beautiful World War II book that won a Newbery Honor, and it's exciting to see a student wanting to learn more. Catherine's War is a graphic novel. I haven't read it. I need to read this for sure. Oh, next up, Phil Bildner's A Whole New Ball Game. Just replaced this entire series. A friend sent them to me. Thank you, friend. And it's already kind of starting to create some buzz in the classroom. So very excited that this kid is reading it and excited to see what he thinks. His dad is an assistant basketball coach at a local university, all basketball all the time. Excited for him to be able to read this. Next up, probably the cutest cover of 2020, Jones Raising Lumi. Just look at that. Olive Hudson desperately wants a dog. She already bought a leash, a bowl, a chew toy shaped like a gorilla, and now all she needs is a puppy. I will definitely be reading this book this year. I just finished this book 2 weeks ago. Book talked it. Nice to see the exact kid in the class who I knew would love this is reading it. Sal and Gabby Break the Universe. I love this book. He actually has a laptop sitting next to him on one of our Chromebooks. There's a lot of Spanish words in the book, and he is like just Googles all of them to help him with the meaning. I love seeing that. Sometimes I'm like, what are you doing on the computer? I think, and then I look and he's just Googling, just wants to know. Love that. I mentioned briefly a little while ago that one of my students read The War reread The War That Saved My Life as a class, and I've had a bunch of students reading The War I Finally Won. It's even falling apart. You can kind of see maybe the binding is breaking. Love when a book gets loved so hard it starts to fall apart. So love that the read aloud is leading to other books. So don't forget, let me know down in the comments what you are reading, what your students are reading. Let's build those two read lists together. The School of Good and Evil. This is a book I would probably never read. No offense, it's just not my style, but love that this girl is reading it. It is exactly the type of book that she would read, and I love that she continues to find books that she loves. Is this a series? It's probably a series. Yeah, book 1. So maybe there's more for her to read. You may have heard of Captain Underpants. Exciting to see a kid taking on this series for, I think, the first time. Awesome. This is the second epic novel in full color. Awesome book. War Stories. I made a YouTube video about this book by Gordon Corman. It's an awesome book that I think is going to really make kids look at war totally differently. I think it's a book that kids are going to love. I think it's a book that is going to be read aloud. I think it's going to be a book that's going to make kids really think hard about war and change a lot of their opinions on it. Excited. This series is always super popular. I Survived. 2 of them rocking and rolling. A bunch of kids have been trying to read the whole series. And nice to see these 2 friends rocking and rolling there. Max, one of my kids read a book by this author earlier this year and asked me to buy the other books by this author. So I did, and it seems to be going really well. Jennifer Lee Schatz. So he loves it. He loves it so hard. Hunger Games. I don't actually own this book in my classroom library, but a kid brought it from home, I think. Hunger Games, it's beginning. They're growing up. They're getting ready for middle school. They're starting to read books like this. It's crazy, right? Kids grow up so fast. Some more Raina Sisters. So good. Thank you, Raina, for all your books. I don't know where we would be without you. You may have heard of this one, Wonder by R.J. Palacio. I don't know, there's probably a 5th grader in almost every classroom in the country that is reading Wonder. And if there's going to be one book that someone in every classroom is reading, not a bad choice. King of the Bench, if you haven't seen this series, it's super fun. All of the books are very much like one color. There's a yellow one. I think there might be a green one. This is the red one, which is Control Freak. I don't know. I spent some time on the bench, basketball, so I totally could relate to this basketball career. And finally, Bloom. This book is terrifying. I read it. I book talked it. I didn't think that kids would be into it. I tried to give like the scariest book talk ever, which made them want to read it even more. So these, my friends, are the books that my amazing, talented, brilliant 5th graders are reading. Please don't forget to let me know down in the comments the books that you are reading, that your kids are reading. So many great books for them to read today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have an awesome-tastic day and happy reading.